So let's talk about poking versus launching and why is this very important for Jin. As you guys, some of you guys know, Jin is a poking character despite him having wave dashes, right? Hell sweeps and electrics, it's all good, but don't forget that Jin it's mostly a poking character, so you're gonna need to poke most characters in order to open up the guard. So consider the following scenario: your opponent is so good at defense that they are not going to get opened up by down twos, by hell sweeps or forward threes, right? They won't get opened up for this stuff. So the only options or the only moment you are going to find them vulnerable is when they try to attack you. So because after they attack, if you manage to avoid the attack, there is something that is called recovery frames, and in that window is when the animation of a character who just attacked is ending, and in that window they cannot block, they cannot do anything. So this is why it's such an important tool for Jin. For example, let me say that if I manage, for example, to check characters with a down 4-1, and Brian can check immediately with a jab because down 4-1 is -3, right? But if I do this after a backdash immediately or a sidestep, I get to punish with a poke. Of course, I can do a launcher, right? And gain this much damage. It's always good to get far more damage, but sometimes the risk isn't always necessary. That's because if you take the risk and your movement isn't on point, you are going to get hit by a jab, which is going to switch up the momentum, and your opponent will be able to control you. Like in this scenario, for example, now I am at -8, and if I try to move around at -8, Brian is just going to do a 14 frame launcher and it's going to hit me regardless, right? So you have to be very careful for that. And in that situation, if you try to duck and he does a orbital heal, you are going to get launched. So doing this, it's far faster than doing a launcher because launchers in Tekken start at 13 to 14 frames, depending on the character. Some do start at 15 frames, which is more universally, but Jin, in this case, he has a 14 frame launcher in electrics, which is good because that makes him part Mishima, not completely full Mishima. But this isn't a rule that Jin needs to play by all the time. Unlike Kazuya, you can of course wave dash as much as you need, right? But Jin doesn't open up people by just doing random wave dashes. You need to have a game plan. So whenever you poke someone into a sidestep, as you guys are seeing right here, because that is the wicked side of Brian, I get to do this, and now I get like a Okizeme situation, right? I get to do this, now I am at +11, which I can check with 4-4. I can check with a low, right? I can do a down 2 right here, but as you guys notice, down 2 is much slower and I get hit by it. But if I want to try a different launcher, you can CDS through a jab and launch immediately. Right? That also works. So it really depends on what moves or how do you feel yourself confident to punish something. Jabs are good, but they are very risky to with punish with electrics. Kazuya does this normally because that is the only move he has. Kazuya only plays with electrics. But if you are Jin, you want to control the match with these small pokes. This doesn't do as much damage, but it gives you certainty, right? It gives you safety and allows you to increase your chances of trying something different that your opponent might not expect. Of course, that if you landed an electric here, you will get a launch, right? But there is also a chance that under stress that your execution might not be super optimal and you are going to get blocked. Maybe you won't get an electric, you're going to get a hook fist and you are going to get punished for it. So these small things, something like this, CDS into this, into Samsara, this stuff counts, right? this stuff counts a lot. So electrics aren't exactly necessary. There is something that I like to think of, is that whenever, for example, if you are on a certain distance, for example from right here, max range, the electric becomes +6. That is +5. If I do it from here, it's +6. See that? And in that situation, you can bait out like a counter hit 4/4 into do something like this. Why is that a bait? Because usually when you are inside range, this is +5 only, and it doesn't trade with 4/4. But if you are already in range and you step out a little bit, just a little bit into an electric, in order to make it hit on the last active frame, you are going to turn your electric into a +6 frame trap, something that you get with down 433, and you get with certain moves on hit like 2-1, right? 1-2, and whatever. You guys know the drill about how this stuff works. I already explained that on G-School, but this is mostly why I think it's important to not neglect your small punishes. A lot of people tend to be greedy. So the main advice today would be, don't be greedy. You need to tickle your opponent, poke your opponent as much as you need to poke, and you understand and assess what the opponent is trying to do, how often they are trying to check you, or how often they are trying to risk getting greedy. And when they got greedy enough in order to try bigger things, like for example going for moves that do take quite a lot to recover. Let me check if we can find some here. Yes, let's try this one. So if I do, for example, something like this, right? Yes, for this. See that window is where you are going to get your launches, right? See that? And this is just one example by one poking. Of course, that if you are spacing your opponent and he gets greedier mid-screen and try to do that, you are going to be in a position to launch them, right? And also another important thing from this is that I'm using minus move. This is -3, this is -3, this is -1, right? This is -12, this is -1 on hit. I mean, just switch this to stand block so you guys can have an idea. This is -1 on hit, see that? So this is how you open up someone who has extremely good defense. I know a lot of people like to go for chunks, but sometimes if you already notice that your opponent is good at blocking such things, stick to what works. What works is down 4 all the time. And if they are getting greedier by attacking your down 4, then your sidestep is what is going to reward you, or something else, right? That is what is important. You can also do this. That also works. It depends on you, but this is mostly it. So there is also 4-4-2, but we are going to cover that one on another day. But this one is 80s, mostly like hitting a 4-4, but I still prefer the 4-4-1. Come on, sidestep this. Oh, you need to delay it. Yeah, that works. So this is the video for today. See you guys on the next one.